guys. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me on this incredible day. This day is Bob Proctor's 89th physical on earth birthday if he were here with us. But he's not, and that's okay because by spirit, he's everywhere. And he is definitely alive and well today because he is on so many Zoom calls and podcasts. And I've just been seeing lives after lives after lives on what I watch and where I follow. And you know what? That just makes my heart happy because he's so impactful. Because even though he's not here, Bob Proctor is still changing lives. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining what I'm doing in that simply, but reading the book. I'm going to take 30 minutes on Mondays and Wednesdays. I'm starting today because it is Bob's birthday. And I'm just going to simply dive right in and read from this book. Now, some of you already have this book and you might be ahead of me, or you might have read the whole thing, and that's okay. Follow along. Maybe you haven't got the book yet. I really urge you to do that and follow along. Or maybe you're just in a country you can't access the book. I don't know. Then listen and pay attention to my words because through me, I know Bob is talking. Um, I've had a few people already tell me, "Oh, you're gonna get choked up and emotional when you read that book." And if I do, hey, I'm human, right? And that's okay. And if I don't, then I guess I have control of my conscious mind because now I'm kind of thinking to myself, "Oh God, I hope I don't end up a soup sandwich," but I won't be. Um, yeah. So without further ado, I'm going to just dive in. All I'm going to do is I'm really going to pay attention. In fact, I'm going to put 30 minutes timer on my phone, even though I've just already taken 4 minutes and rattled off what I'm doing. I'm going to put 30 minutes on my phone. And when it goes off, I'm basically done. I will wrap up. Maybe if we're in the middle of a thought, I will actually put 26 minutes. And end, not just in mid sentence or mid paragraph, but I'll wrap it up. And then that's it. That's all. If you catch this on the replay, please be sure to hashtag replay. Let me know you've been here. If you're commenting right now, I'm not going to pay attention really to the comments, but chat amongst yourselves. If something really strikes you that we read, just talk amongst yourselves. I will pick up later and I will go back through the comments. I am going to start at the introduction. I'm not going to read the foreword, but I will start at the introduction and I will hit my timer, which is 26 minutes right now. When I end, I end. Okay? Introduction. The title of this book holds a lot of truth. My father did know the secret. He lived that secret up till his last breath. For 60 years, I went to school on Bob Proctor's experiences and wisdom, and for nearly 30 of those years, I worked by his side. Of course, we know Brian Proctor wrote this book, his son. Those years with Bob Proctor as my father and friend gave me a unique understanding that I feel a sincere responsibility to share. For most of my life, the question I have been asked most often is, what is it like having Bob Proctor as a father? So, my answer to that question is what you hold here. I am one of the few who saw Bob Proctor work in the self-development industry from the beginning. I was there with him through it all. I saw how hard he worked crafting his message, always wanting to get it just right so that anyone could understand and benefit regardless of their education, background, or culture. He genuinely strived to make a difference in this world. I began reading this book in 2019, and on many occasions, Dad would say to me, "Brian, don't rush it. Take your time and write from your heart. The book will be done when it is supposed to be done." When it's supposed to be. A part of me wonders if he knew he would not be here when I finished. I know he enjoyed our conversations about this book, and I suspect that he didn't want that to end. When Dad got sick, I set this project aside and went home to Toronto to be with him and his wife, Linda, helping however I could. Then, when I thought he was better, I resumed writing. That only lasted, though that only lasted a couple of months. It wasn't long before I found myself back in Toronto. this time sitting at his bedside in the hospital. Bob Proctor was wise, different than most. He possessed an understanding that came from his years of persistence and constant study. From that understanding, Dad had a peaceful knowing that put him in a class all of his own. Over the years, I accumulated stacks of notebooks from Dad's seminars, each intertwined with my own thoughts on his teachings. These notebooks, my conversations with my father, and my 60 years of life experiences growing up with him became the template for this book. I hope that what I share here I hope that what I share here helps you as much as it has helped me, shaped and guided me. I always expected this book to be published and released while Dad was alive, but that didn't happen. Instead, it happened when it was supposed to happen. Okay. I feel Dad's presence every day. I imagine him now enjoying his new journey, likely speaking from the stage in heaven. So there's instructions here how to use this book. Next page. Important tips from the author. The lessons you'll find in this book are simple. They tie into and revolve around creating value in relationships. The success I experience today is due to the relationships I have cultivated based on what I've learned from growing up with Bob Proctor as my father. Not just my relationships with those around me, but most importantly, my relationship with myself. I have learned that the deeper you can love yourself, the easier it is to love and appreciate others. No matter what is happening around you, the world is better when you come from a place of love. In this book, you will find stories and thoughts to trigger your own thinking. In addition, you will find ideas for questioning your perspective and ways to improve your life and relationships. I learned from my father that whenever I was having an issue or needed an answer, I could take out a book that I was studying and just let it open onto a page and start reading. He said the answer I was looking for would usually reveal itself. So that is how I have written this book. You can pick it up, open it anywhere, and find something wise that my father taught me. I know in my heart something here will resonate with you, and when you read that message, you will know. Use these lessons in whatever way you need, and trust that when you start living your life with awareness and through conscious choices, every part of your life will improve. And when that happens, everyone around you will benefit. It's a beautiful ripple effect that I can attest to. In July 2014, we held a spectacular 80th birthday party for Dad at his favorite hotel, the Bellagio in Las Vegas. It was during that party that my Uncle Al stood at the front of the ballroom with a microphone and said to the crowd gathered, "When my big brother went on his journey all those years ago, it improved the lives of everyone around him, his siblings, his kids, nieces, nephews, and those who were fortunate to call him a friend. It was like throwing a pebble into the water and watching the vibrational change of the water when it hit. Dad's journey is now being shared with the fourth generation of proctors. And may I add, many consultants who have studied his work. He has altered paradigms in our family that will continue forever. And you will have the capacity to be that person too, for you and your family. You can be the one that changes everything for the better. As you read these pages, please keep in mind and be willing to question your own beliefs and how they serve you or they don't in your day-to-day life. At the end of most chapters in this book, you will find thinking points to consider related to that chapter and space to write notes. That's why I urge you to buy this book or get a piece of paper. Use those sections provided and make this book your personal roadmap by highlighting what resonates with you and putting it into practice. Return to this book often to remind yourself how you want to live. And if you are a student of Bob Proctor's, like I You know that repetition through reading creates change. You can't help but get emotionally involved with an idea when you are reading it over and over and over. My father was a testament to that. I promise that when you do this, your world will brighten. The trees will look greener and you will hear the birds sing louder. Every day will be better. And as Dad often said, better is a good word. Quick pause. My mantra every morning when I wake up and my eyes open is every day in every way, I get better and better, which is a Louise Hay mantra affirmation. Honor who you are today and imagine how you can improve. You are right. You are where, you are where you are right now because of past decisions and circumstances. That is a fact, and you cannot change that, so honor it. And know that you can choose and cultivate who you become from this moment forward. A good practice would be to date the responses you write throughout this book. So you can use it as a yardstick of time to track your growth whenever you return to a chapter. I do know how fortunate I am to call Bob Proctor my father. This book is my way of sharing that privilege with you. And it is a way for me to honor who Bob Proctor is to me. It is a way for me to keep his memory alive. So before he ended that introduction or how to use this book, there's 3 questions that he'd like you to consider. Number 1, if all your past makes you who you are today, then who would you be if you forgot your past and started in a new place? Okay, consider that. Number 2, what if the only thing you knew was that you could be, do, or have anything you truly desired? What would you want to be, do, or have? And number 3, what will happen in your life if you show up as the best person or best version of yourself? What would happen if you showed up that way? Take notes. Interesting. The timer says 16 minutes. Awesome. Chapter 1. We can do this. Dad's final lesson. Saying goodbye. The night of February 3rd, 2022 will be forever etched in my mind. That was the evening my father passed away. I consider myself fortunate to have been there holding his hand when he made his transition. I've been through difficult things in my life, but nothing compares to saying goodbye to my dad. I was with my father for much of his last 60 years of life, and what we shared was precious and deeply meaningful. I learned so much. It was as if Dad wanted to ensure I got it all before he left. We talked and reminisced for hours each day, often in the early mornings like we had done on the phone for many years. That was our time. My father was a man who freely gave and took pride in helping others. He took an interest in everyone he encountered. If you are one of those people who had the chance to meet him either at an event or online, or maybe it was a phone call, you know what I mean. I do. Bob pinpointed me out of a crowd of 360 people, and he came and he gave me a message and talked to me. Some of you may have seen that in my posts or something like that. Most impactful thing that's ever happened in my entire life, I'll tell you that. At seminar events, I would often escort him through the event venue to ensure we got him back on stage on time. So often people would catch him in the hallway or on an elevator, and he would always stop, shake hands, perhaps take a picture, and most importantly, he would give you time. You will always remember having met Bob Proctor. However, as available as he was to everyone, his family was always closest to his heart. The night of his passing on February 3rd, 2022, he was surrounded by his wife Linda, my sister Colleen, my brother Raymond, me, and our spouses, plus a dear friend who was there to help guide us and make it as comfortable as possible for Dad. My father always knew what he wanted and would do whatever it took to achieve that. Being surrounded by family is how he wanted to go, and right to the end, he knew how to make it happen. Only a few days earlier, we were in the hospital. It was clear that the end was coming. Dad knew he would be leaving us and was adamant about coming home. No was not an answer he would accept. Dad focused only on making it happen. At that point, he was in the intensive care, and his visitor list was extremely limited. My father needed to see, touch, and say goodbye to his 11 grandchildren personally, along with some special friends. As you can imagine, he was not doing very well. But despite this, he continued to make anyone in his presence feel special. He was true to his being right up until the very end. While we were waiting together in his hospital room for the transport team to arrive, we held hands and he was smiling. I could feel his energy. The ambulance attendants soon came with a gurney to begin the process of transporting him home. When the two men walked into the room, Dad was so happy that he was going home. He was so happy that he was going home that he lit up at the sight of them. As anxious as he was to get this process going, he did what you would expect Bob Proctor would do. He made those two men feel seen. It was a powerful reminder of a great principle that my father lived by. Dad looked at the first gentleman and said, "Wait, first tell me, what's your name?" He answered, "Mohammed." Dad looked him in the eye with a smile, said, "Mohammed is a powerful name." He then looked at the second man and asked him the same question. He replied, "Turek." Dad said, "I love that name. Unique and strong." Both men paused and stood there for a moment looking at my father. They had no idea who he was, but Dad had put a smile on both of their faces. He was wrapping them in kindness. That kindness he showed those two men caused them to be even kinder to him, which was nice. They gently moved him to the stretcher and were about to wheel him out when Dad did something I will never forget. He put his arms up in the air and said, "Mohammed, Tureg, take me home, boys." He said it with such enthusiasm that he surprised all of us. What an incredible frame of mind to be in when making your final journey home. It was unbelievable and extraordinary all at the same time. Dad was also kind to the nurses, doctors, and orderlies. Anyone that came into his room felt different, left feeling different. He was calm and caring and constantly told whomever he came in contact with that they were doing a good job, as if they did the necessary, even if, as they did the necessary poking and prodding. I can tell you, Dad was not big on being in a hospital and all that it entailed, but he didn't let it bother him, and he always made it easier for the healthcare workers trying to help him. At one point, a nurse who needed to add another IV was apologizing to my father for having difficulty finding a vein. He touched her lightly and said, "You just do whatever you need to. It's okay. You're doing a great job." I was so proud to be by his side, watching the way he talked to the people caring for him while he lay there, not feeling well, and quite frankly, in extreme discomfort. But here's a big takeaway that will always be with me. Dad did not let his current adverse circumstances dictate how he would treat those around him. That night, Dad was escorted out of the hospital by Mohammed and Turag. There was a lineup of teary-eyed hospital staff waiting for him, wanting to touch him and say goodbye. And after he passed, we received notes from the people working in the hospital telling us what a great man he was and how he would make them feel at his toughest moment in life. He had made a real impression on those people whom he had only met for a moment in time, but that is how he lived his life to the very end. In his worst moments, Dad looked for the good around him. Even in those last few days when his pain was extreme, he saw only the good and made sure that he told anyone in his world how special they were. My father never saw the point in talking about or focusing on the negative side of things. Looking for the good in everything is how he lived. Dad believed in what he liked to call the impression of increase. The theory is to have every person you meet feel better because they were in your presence. Bob Proctor was a master of this. When teaching from the stage, you would watch him come down into the audience and touch someone lightly on the shoulder as he spoke to them. Yep. He would make that person feel like they were the only person in the room. Okay. That is an extraordinary thing. Feeling seen and understood is a universal need, and Dad understood that assignment. Okay, now I can't see. Yes, I can. In Bob Proctor's many recordings, you will hear him say, "A pro is at their best regardless." I witnessed that firsthand during this time. Dad was a pro, regardless. He was a pro to his last breath. To give this context, you should know that his last 6 months were tough. He was in a lot of pain in and out of the hospital. Because of that pain, he mostly used a wheelchair at the end. He could take a few steps, but it wasn't easy. On top of that, he had had several infections that significantly weakened him. As a result, we spent most of our time together, quietly talking. I could feel his need to share as much with me as possible. As you likely know, Bob Proctor loved to teach. Nothing was more important to him than sharing his message, knowing it could help someone live a better life. He knew this because he had changed his own life with this material. He wasn't about to let his condition stop him now. He still had so much he wanted to share, so we made sure we were there to help him do just that. During those last few months, it would often take many hours to navigate his pain and get him dressed so he could get in front of that camera and share his message. Dad loved fashion and had a lot of style. He was in a class all of his own. My father was well known for his suits, ties, and Italian shoes. His closet was lined with custom-made suits from Toronto and custom-made shoes from Italy. It looked like an art exhibit. On filming days, it would take Linda and I, and sometimes my son Danny, to prepare him for a broadcast. We all worked to get everything chosen and adjusted to his satisfaction. We had a lot of laughs together, trying to get him ready, with Dad's laugh, despite his discomfort, always being the loudest of all. The studio where my father broadcasted from was 100 steps from his house. He loved his studio. It was his place to create. When Dad was dressed and ready, we'd walk those 100 steps together, usually with me on one side and Danny on the other. Once he was situated at his desk and the camera went live, he forgot all his pain and spoke with incredible strength, as if channeling the information to viewers watching. If you saw any of his live broadcasts at the end of his life, the odds are you did not know he was in pain. His desire to reach as many people as possible with his message was intense. At the end, that desire became more urgent. He might only teach for 30 minutes, but he would be on fire for those 30 minutes, always at his best when it counted. When he would finish, Danny and I would help him up and back into the house. Dad never complained, but you could see the pain on his face. He would lie on the couch in the sitting room and rest for hours. Sometimes while lying there, when I thought he was asleep, he would suddenly say, "Hey, Bri, isn't this a great life? Look at this beautiful room. Even the ceiling is beautiful." always living from a place of gratitude. Seeing him in this pain was heartbreaking. I would often lay in bed at night during this time and marvel with a sense of sorrow at how he could sustain such a good attitude and humor. His strength, attitude, and determination during those last months was remarkable. As a father, my dad did everything he could to take care of us all. Throughout my life, I watched him give the same love and care to his audience and clients. But in the end, his last gift was that we could take care of him. I remember whispering that in his ear near the end and telling him how much I loved him. At that point, he could not communicate very well with words and would drift in and out of consciousness, but I knew he could hear and understand me. When I would whisper in his ear, he would give my hand a gentle squeeze. He was mentally sharp, but his body was letting go. Squeezing my hand was his way of thanking me and letting me know he was there. Sometimes when Dad appeared to be asleep, he would suddenly make a motion that he wanted you to hold his hand. One of the last things my dad said to me was, "Brian, I will always be with you. Talk to me every day. Ask me questions when you talk to me, and the answers will come to you." He said this many times to me and made sure I understood. I can see his loving face while lying there, willing me to understand that he will always be with me. That vision gives me strength. Bob Proctor was the most extraordinary, loving, kind, and giving man I have ever known. He walked his talk, and I have witnessed that in my entire life. I am fortunate to have had 60 years with him by my side, and I am incredibly grateful for that. I want you to understand that he was not afraid of dying. He was able to say goodbye to all his family and close friends. And the best thing is that he did it his way. I'm just going to end on there because that is page 34 for you that are following with me. And we're right at the top of Listen to Your Inner Voice. I just glanced at the timer, which says 1 minute and 30 seconds left, which actually leaves us at 12:30. And I said 30 minutes, even though I rambled in the beginning. So I will put my bookmark in there for Monday, and I will be back at Monday at noon, and we will continue our reading from there. Thank you for joining me once again, and we will talk to you again. Bye.